We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
What's pro football focus doing? Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady.
We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Ready to get into it?
Yeah.
All right. We're going team by team.
I would be very careful about slinging stone.
Am I going to get sued?
We got legal on this?
I like football season, and all the things that go with it.
Welcome into the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo, Sam Monson. We're live on YouTube Thursday morning. Happy opening day, Sam.
Mm-hmm.
It's opening day.
It is.
For baseball.
Yeah.
It's a great day. We're live, and even greater, we found Chris Sims.
Found him.
We did. We got Chris Sims, and we got him coming on the show. So go tell your friends.
Yeah.
PFF NFL podcast. Chris Sims Unbuttoned. The crossover show people have been asking for.
We've been asking for it.
We have been.
More importantly,
Yeah.
We've been trying to get this for ages.
And Chris answered.
Yeah, Chris comes on, gets to talk about his rankings with us. This is fun.
It's very fun because Chris, as we've mentioned a lot here, we reference his rankings because they're different.
Yeah.
And we appreciate that they're different, and he sees the game through his lens, different from our lens, and we get to discuss that. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, we get to debate some of his rankings versus some of ours, talk through certain players, why he's lower or higher on them than we are, and put some nuance and actual reasoning behind this, not just the Twitter world of here comes some rankings, oh, those are crazy, you idiot, and move on. You know what I mean? Like, This is how it's supposed to work.
You know I hate that. You know I detest that, right? People giving their hot takes on rankings or quotes that are out of context.
Yeah.
I can't stand that. So this is great that we get to discuss.
I think you can still come to a reasonable conclusion at the end of all that the rankings, either way, his or ours, are still crazy.
Oh, we could still disagree.
Right, but at least
whatever.
You hear the reasoning for it. You've got to respect the work or the process that goes into it rather than just madness. That's getting to hear the explanation behind rankings, I think, is important rather than just here's the list.
So before we get to Chris, you wanted to discuss.
News. Breaking news.
Got some news here.
Breaking yesterday, but breaking news. CNN has this, or had this yesterday. A baseball team. And somebody sent this to me. Damn it. Was it an email or was it a Twitter? I forget who actually sent us to this, so apologies to the person I'm forgetting. But CNN led with a headline, "This baseball team chose an exploding whale as its new identity. The Eugene Emeralds, the former Eugene Emeralds, will rebrand and become the Eugene Exploding Whales." And as listeners of this podcast will know, if you've been listening for long enough, the exploding whale was an analogy used to describe a once formerly great team dying on its ass who has just one last victory in it, i.e. the explosion of the noxious fumes built up in an exploding whale on a beach, as happened in Eugene, Oregon, whenever the hell that was, back in the days of standard definition and grainy TV footage. But the Eugene Emeralds are now the Eugene Exploding Whales, who sell merchandise. I must buy a T-shirt with that whale clutching the dynamite stick in its hand. I've also already reached out to see if I can throw out the first pitch somewhere. You know? It feels like that should happen.
Absolutely it should happen. And the Eugene Emeralds need to know that you are an exploding whale expert. That should essentially be the mascot for us here in the PFF NFL podcast.
Yeah.
So if you could find Sam's tweet at PFF_Sam, go like the tweet and respond.
Yes.
And say, look, we need to get Sam. We have to work hard to get Sam to throw out the first pitch. Because not only have we learned that Sam could throw 60 miles an hour and not embarrass himself as the first pitch thrower, but this is your baby. This is your analogy that you bring to the table once a season. And this needs to happen.
Somebody has already tagged the Eugene Emeralds, formerly Emeralds, broadcasting social media manager. So, maybe there's an avenue for me to throw out the first pitch. Also, it feels like the natural step from throwing 60 miles an hour, from throwing relatively accurately at the person at the other end of the thing, is to graduate from, was that the bullpen we were in?
Yeah, the bullpen.
To graduate from the bullpen to crowd, to see if pressure of a stadium environment changes.
You're not ready for this. It's really tough. One of the toughest things about pitching is when you feel one way in the bullpen and you get to the game and everything's different. My pitches feel different. The mound feels different. The adrenaline of the crowd is different. I don't think you can handle it.
See, I still feel like it can't be that hard.
Oh, of course. Baseball's easy. Piece of cake.
Yeah.
I'm going to opening day today, by the way. I'm going to watch the Reds today.
I have a broader respect for throwing, say, 90 miles an hour. I feel like that is quite hard.
Thanks.
But I still feel like hitting the guy with the mitt at the end of the 60 foot? That
60 foot, 6 inches.
Okay, at the end of the 60-foot thing is pretty easy. Certainly to the degree of, I think I can get it in his general vicinity as opposed to like 50 Cent putting it in the stands over there, Conor McGregor throwing like that. I can't possibly be that bad.
Well, we need to make this happen. So if we can get our listeners and viewers to make this happen.
Yes.
I did look them up. They are a Giants High A affiliate. I don't know how they restructured High A. It used to just be the Cal League.
You must have an IM.
I looked at the coaching staff. There's definitely a former teammate of mine.
Well, there you go.
Who I just remember his name. Don't know anything else about him.
That's all you need.
He was a catcher. I almost certainly threw a bullpen to him at one point in the 3 years that we were in spring training together. So I've got some connections there. But as a former San Francisco Giants legend, I feel like we should be able to pull this off. So I'm going to see if we can.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. This is maybe the first and only time your actual long and glorious baseball career can help us out here.
All right. Well, this is why the people tuned in, so they could hear about the exploding whale. Mm-hmm. Rocco in the chat asks if Sims is live or in the can.
The can being like
the technical, the TV term here.
Oh, I see. Rather than the jacks over there.
Yeah. Right. It's in the can. We did it. We already recorded it. So full disclosure, we don't lie here.
No,
we don't lie. No. We're gonna finish the podcast with Chris Sims, and then it's just gonna end. We're not going to come back.
No, we're just going to leave.
It's just going to end.
Yeah.
Before we get to him, though, the PFF NFL podcast is sponsored by Western and Southern Financial Group. While you focus on your roster moves, Western and Southern helps advance your money moves. Buying your first home, planning to start a family, wondering how to make your money grow? Well, Western and Southern's playbook of life insurance, investment, and retirement solutions helps you rest assured on game day. Team up to understand needs and address goals with a game plan built just for you. Get started at westernsouthern.com/PFF. So as we head to the draft, we're very excited to do more of these interviews. So you're not just hearing our takes over and over again. We get to have actual draft discussion. So we got Sims today, Jim Nagy coming up soon, Dane Brugler coming up soon over the next few weeks. So really excited to just get some fresh thoughts on the draft here.
You just violated the golden rule of interviews, which is you can't ever say the name before it's like locked in. Because now something will happen.
They agreed. They agreed to do the show. We don't have a date and
everybody
time.
always agrees, and then something happens, things come up, people get busy, and all of a sudden it doesn't happen. You end up looking like an idiot.
Like at the last second, Chris and I, we made it happen via DM.
Right.
We pulled it together.
Like, so. I've been promising the guy who I haven't even named sending his rugby videos for an extended period of time, and the man's just gone dark after winning the Six Nations.
That's because they won. You just have to drop that in there. Congrats.
Yeah. Thank you.
On the Six Nations. It's good.
It's Grand Slam.
Wow.
4th time ever.
That's amazing. You must be on cloud nine.
It's great now, but the World Cup is looming, and that's the big prize.
That's when you always choke.
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
Still got to get past the quarterfinals.
All right. Do you have anything else to say before we leave? I'm going to the Reds game. I'm out of here.
No.
Going to parade. We got a parade downtown. They celebrate opening day here in Cincinnati.
Yeah. It's decent enough weather.
Does anybody want to hear my Sergio Romo story?
Oh, God, no.
Definitely not. My former teammate just retired the other night. They had a big ceremony, pulled him off the mound, big ovation in San Francisco.
Yeah. You could tell it, but you could shorten it a lot from your previous effort.
Okay, so basically Romo and I, we were in the bullpen back in 2008, Double-A. Batting practice, I decided to go after a fly ball for the one time in like 2 weeks. I'm running. He calls for it. He says, I got it. I didn't hear anything. It just ran him over. He's a little guy. Ran him over. Knee injury. Sergio Romo injured for about 4 weeks.
You just trampled him.
And
like
he
a
was
moose.
tearing it up. He was on his way to the big leagues.
Yeah.
I probably cost him a major league check for about a month.
You just trampled over him like a moose.
He's very mad at me. He was mad at me then. He's probably mad at me now.
Yeah.
And I got called up to AAA ahead of him after that. So I'm the first player to go to AAA after I took out our closer.
You Wally pipped him, except you actually you were the reason he got injured in the first place.
Except when I got to AAA, I got injured, and he went straight to the big leagues. He didn't even go to AAA.
Yeah.
He went to the big leagues. He was there from 2008 to 2022, and boom, just retired the other day.
It was what's the dude's name that Wally pipped? Wally Pip?
It was Lou Gehrig.
Yeah. So
Lou Gehrig got Wally.
Lou Gehrig got Wally pipped.
Wally Pip got Lou Gehrig, really.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
So you were Lou Gehrig, except you actually went and injured Wally Pip.
Yeah, and then when I had my opportunity to be Lou Gehrig,
right? Then you just weren't Lou Gehrig.
I sucked.
Yeah.
And got hurt.
Right.
And then Romo went to San Francisco, which was inevitable anyway. He was awesome.
Right.
Yeah. He threw 88.
I mean, that's the downside of why not everybody gets to be Lou Gehrig. You actually have to have the Lou Gehrig.
Oh, you got to be good.
Right.
You got to be good. It was never good. Never good enough. It was good enough to get to AAA, though. So, anyway.
It was never good.
Congrats to Sergio Romo on an outstanding Major League career. 3 rings with the Giants.
And for recovering from being trampled
and
by
recovering from the knee injury.
Yeah.
Oh, he's still probably mad.
I've never been trampled by you, but it doesn't look fun.
I tweeted at him a couple years ago about that, and he laughed. So I think he's over it.
Okay.
I think we're good now.
I mean, once you have a certain level of money, you could probably get over quite a lot.
Oh, yeah. I think he's probably okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's had a lot of better teammates than me since then and everything. So, Anyway. All right, let's do it. We're going to talk some football now. Quarterbacks and receivers right now with Chris Sims. All right, we are thrilled to have Chris Sims join us on the PFF NFL podcast. Chris, welcome. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Steve, Sam. I appreciate it. Respect a lot of what you guys do. I really do. You guys do a great job. I'm sure you probably only hear about when I go, how could they do that or how could they say that? But I do have great respect for what you guys do, and it's cool to be, a part of this. So thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on.
Well, yes, we appreciate having you, and we're not going to lie. We mention your name a lot too. It's like Sims came out with his rankings again, and let's discuss it. And we have a lot of crossover fans. I believe there's a lot of people who say you should get Chris on the show to discuss things. There's others that say no, we don't want Chris because you know how that goes. But no, we've been.
I'm sure.
Yeah, we've been wanting to ask you about your quarterbacks and receivers through the years and everything. So pretty excited to do this. So let's start with QBs. Your rankings always differ from the consensus. I wanted to start with your process and just what you're looking for and how you go about looking at these draft quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, and my process, I'm always trying to tinker with it, and do that. Even last year, I wasn't thrilled with my process, and I felt like that maybe led to some underwhelming year of quarterback rankings, right? But my big thing, I think, at a base level is, hey, I'm big into talent, traits, elite traits, things like that. That's the first place I jump off from, right? So that's where I go, and then as you go through, you start to watch film and go, oh, okay, hey, decision making. How is he in that department? How's his feel for the game overall? Okay. Oh, wait, he's got a great strong arm, but is there versatility in it? Does he have some other clubs in the bag, right? Does he do that? Then, okay, there is versatility. Is there versatility in releases? All right, certainly some of that. And then I'm big into, within the decision making, did you take advantage of all that was there to be had, right? I know I was on teams, and we all do this, where, you grade a quarterback and you go, oh, okay, he got a 4-yard completion. That's a positive. But so many times, and this happened to me as later in my career, where, hey, yeah, you give it a positive grade, but hey, there was a 20-yard in cut open, and I know you got the 4-yard completion, but we had a chance for 35 down the middle here, and you let that go by the wayside. So I'm big into taking advantage of all that's there to be had, and then when there's nothing there to be had, what do you do then? And that's also another little, added incentive that I try to look at. And then, of course, you then build in, hey, what's around them, who they playing, what's the advantages they have because of who's around them and who's coaching them. And you try to do your best to kind of formulate all of that and put it together from there.
It's interesting that you said sort of right off the bat that, you're big into traits, and that's something I think that you can notice from looking at your quarterback rankings down the years. And we were sort of talking the last couple of days about almost discovering that we have a type, right? Whether it's quarterbacks, wide receivers, whatever it is, you suddenly start realizing that you're drawn to all the same kind of guys. For quarterbacks in particular, do you sort of look at the way the league has gone recently? There was a bunch of these sort of traits, toolsy type guys work out almost consecutively. And then, maybe the last couple of years it started to go back in the other direction. But like with that sort of ebb and flow of traits and things, does that kind of make you think about that year after year? Or do you just sort of, this is the kind of guys I like, and sometimes they're going to work, sometimes they're not?
Well, I think a little bit of both there. I mean, you're spot on, Sam. I mean, you really are. But I try not to go, wait, right? Like, let's say Joe Burrow. When he was coming out, I wasn't like, oh, this is the fastest guy ever. This is the greatest arm ever, right? I wasn't like, oh, my gosh, it's lasers all over the field. But I just went, damn, it's just the decision-making and all of it together is perfect there. So that was a year where maybe, Justin Herbert had the strongest arm. And, I think most people would have gone, well, I'm shocked Sims didn't make him the number one quarterback. All right, well, there's a point there where I go, hey, it's a strong arm or he's really fast. But, holy crap, he can't play the freaking game. So what's the point of even having the strong arm or the great legs? But, like, always evaluate that. And I do think that, there's times where, hey, playing the game, decision-making, quickness of the release, maybe is something that I gotta, hey, these guys are showing that their ability to get better as a passer is more of a thing now than maybe it was 15 years ago. And I think that's adjusted my thinking a little, Sam, to your point. The other problem too, and I think you guys are probably in this, sometimes you can't meet these guys, right? Yeah. You can't meet these guys. You don't know what really makes them or what they are as a human being or as a person. And when it's like that at times and you're doing it all off film, then that's where you can get maybe swayed by traits a little bit more than maybe you should at times.
It's interesting. You have, I would say, more access to these guys than we do through, the stuff you do with NBC and stuff. How much does actually meeting these guys in person, talking to them face to face, how much does that go into your rankings?
Well, I know. Like, see, the quarterbacks this year, I didn't get to see any of them. And a lot of the years, I haven't been able to. There's been some years where I got to meet them and say hello, and then it does give you a feel, And I'm not trying to, like, pat myself on the back here, but that is one thing where, my upbringing, being around, Lawrence Taylors of the world and Harry Carsons, where I go, well, I know what an outside linebacker is supposed to look like, and I know what and so that's where the look test, it can be, somewhat. There's some stock into that, is what I'm saying. I can look at the guys and meet a few defensive ends, and I'm not going to name names or whatever, but you go and you get done with the combine and you met him and you interviewed him and you go, well, I don't know, people got this guy rated high, but man, his body would scare me or his demeanor would scare me just right off the bat. So there is some things to get clues there. I wish I got to see it more. I wish I got to go to pro days more. That probably helped me more, but that's the way it is, and so be it, and I do my best with what I got.
So Sam and I were kind of talking about that when it comes to quarterbacks when we were at the Super Bowl, right? And we're all there, and it's the massive media room, and Carson Palmer walked in one day, and Ryan Leaf is running around, and Chris Sims is running around, and it's like, wow, these guys are Boomer Esiason, right? When we first met Boomer, it's like, dude is way bigger in person than you even realize. Right. And it's like, I could understand how an NFL team might just sit down in an interview and be like, that's what it's supposed to look like, for better or for worse, right? Like that's going to sway you. Which brings me to Bryce Young this year.
Yeah, well, it's sort of harder for you, because you're 6'10", you're a giant amongst everybody.
But I know how to look down amongst people.
Yeah, I know. You can put yourself in the eyes of the little people. But for people like me who are normal-sized human beings, right, 5'11", like 180 pounds, I am looking up again, to all these quarterbacks who are like 6'3", 6'4", 6'5". They're all huge. And then Bryce Young is my size. And suddenly when you see it next to guys like Carson Palmer and Ryan Leaf and, these prototypical quarterback-sized people, it really does make you go, like, somebody in the NFL is going to look at those two guys side by side and go, no way, it can't happen.
Right. No, I do. I think there's I think the league has changed a little bit because of, the quarterback position. hey, the game can be a little more spread out. The quarterbacks are more protected. So, having that quarterback that's 6'4", 235 is not as important as it once was. But yeah, I still think there's teams, and listen, I'm one of these guys too, that I'd be scared to have a quarterback that size. I don't know if I could actually pull the trigger on it. I don't know if I could. I'm a little old school in those thoughts. I do put the value in some of the size things that quarterbacks do, throwing within the pocket and all that. I know there's, some curveballs or some ones that buck the trend every now and then, but yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think there are going to be a few teams in football that look at Bryce Young and go, man, I like the way he plays, but I just can't come to terms with ever really putting that guy at the top of my board with those size limitations there.
What do you think is the biggest issue with size? Is it I think the most overrated thing that we hear is batted passes. It's like that's not the issue, right?
It is. You're exactly right.
But when you see size, is it the durability aspect? Is it the vision aspect? What is it about size that you think is the biggest hindrance?
Yeah, I think it's the durability, of course. How can that not concern you, right? But then I think purely on the football field, the thing where I see it the most, and even like in a Bryce Young or a Russell Wilson, right? Kyler Murray, all right? I'm going to give you that when the pocket closes in and quarters are close, I see very few big-time awesome throws from those guys at times. Where I go, then we could take Brady and Herbert and go, I could show you a bunch of throws in every game where they got people hanging on them, and if the pocket's the same way that I explained for the other guys, and they just and throw a 20-yard out route or a 15-yard in cut. So that's where, size is a skill. I think sometimes it does get, a little brushed over, but the ability to, throw over the line of scrimmage, see over the line of scrimmage, and then because of your size and your levers and the size of your hands and all that, you don't need as much effort to maybe throw the 20-yard out route as the guy who's 5'10", 185-pound needs to make that same throw.
So is the size the biggest thing for you that has your rankings this year, having C.J. Stroud number one, Bryce Young in that tier below?
I mean, I would say it's right there, Sam. It's the size along with the power throws, and that's where I really love C.J. Stroud. Stroud's ability just to throw, what I call, explosive type play throws. The deep out routes, the deep in cuts, the middle post, down cover two, right down the middle, all of those type of things. I'm just enamored with him in that department. I think his movement in the pocket has been a little underrated. He does a great job of sliding, moving, and then with people around him, he is unaffected by it. Because of his size and his ability to throw the ball and not needing a whole lot of room to put a lot of power and RPMs on the ball. That's where, I thought he separated himself. And I think, too, not only just college, it's also a little bit of I think this projects much better to the NFL, where I have some questions about Bryce Young, about what I see on film and go, I'm not sure if that's going to work in the NFL, and I'm not sure if that would have worked for a lot of places other than at Alabama, and maybe it just makes it look a little better. And, I might be wrong, but that's just some of the things that I question there.
How do you weigh when you go through, you watch tape, you see things, good or bad, and then it's sort of figuring out, okay, how big a piece is this of the puzzle? So Stroud is this really interesting prospect because in the Georgia game, he showed everything you want to see, right? He answered every single question, was phenomenal under pressure, did a bunch of the kind of late in the down or ad-lib type of plays that isn't necessarily on his tape everywhere. If you watch that game, you're like, this is the number one QB in the draft, and we don't even have a conversation. It's simple. But almost every other game, it's like the exact opposite. He's been one of the worst quarterbacks in this class in play under pressure, certainly last year, but even over the last couple of years. So, and we've been having this debate constantly. How much do you weigh that one game against, the best competition at the biggest time versus the other stuff, which is more, but potentially less meaningful?
Yeah, no, I hear you. Well, I think that's where you get into hey, look, there's a little bit of untapped potential. That's where it is a little bit of the projection, piecing it together, to go, okay, and then to your point, yeah, you don't see it on a regular basis in other games, but you see a smattering of it here and there to where you go, okay, wait, I think he could do this. I saw him make some nice moves in the Michigan game where I was like, oh, okay. And there was some other game, Penn State game, where I just went, again, it wasn't great pressure, but just a nice slide. Oh, we got out of trouble here, right? So there was little inklings here and there to where I went, oh, no, this guy can do this. This is just kind of like, hey, he hasn't had to do it a whole lot. Like he's at Ohio State. And then like the Michigan thing, yeah, there's good players and you're protected pretty well. And a lot of times you don't have to do some of that stuff right there that you're talking about. But I do think it's in his game, and I think it's natural to him. I just think it needs to be brought out of him a little bit. But, yeah, that's where, again, like here's one where always jumps out to me that I talk about piecing things together. Like T. Higgins coming out in the draft a few years ago. He comes out, and there was a lot of talk about, can he run routes? And I don't know how good he is at getting out of breaks and all that. And it was hard to find film to see that, right? There was a few plays here and there. And you go, okay, I see a little. But the thing that made me go, you know what, I think this guy's got it in him, is some of the moves and the way he ran with the ball in his hand. And I started to go, look, he's making cuts here. And somebody's just got to teach him a little bit how to do it in route running, and he's going to be able to do it. And, sometimes you piece it together like that and hope it works. Sometimes you're wrong, and that's where I wish I could meet the human, because that's where the human could tell you, is he going to work? Is he really going to be invested in it? But that's part of the process and what you do when you're guys like you and me. You try to piece that together.
All right, going back to your QB rankings here. So you've got Stroud in tier 1 as your top guy, and then Bryce Young in tier 2 as your second quarterback, with Hendon Hooker as your third from Tennessee. So I'm seeing a lot more buzz for Hendon Hooker right now, but I think you were one of the first to have him that high. Certainly to have Hooker higher than Anthony Richardson, higher than Will Levis.
I appreciate you saying that, because I did feel the same thing. Like nobody was talking about Hendon Hooker, and then I let out my rankings, and all of a sudden I started to see him. So I do appreciate you giving me a little love there. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you're right or wrong. I'm just saying you're early.
I know.
Just saying you're early.
Right.
We might take the love back by saying it's crazy.
So look, I mean, people who listen to our podcast, that all we've said is, man, how do you evaluate Tennessee quarterbacks, receivers, and offensive linemen in that offense? So what did you love about Hendon Hooker, and how do you separate his evaluation with what they do offensively?
Yeah, no, I hear you. There's some things there that you just go, well, this isn't life in the NFL. This doesn't make sense. These plays, these coverages, I hear you. But at the same time, again, that's where you get into the piecing it together. And the physical attributes. Again, a big guy, to me, the best at throwing over the line of scrimmage with people in his face, maybe in the whole draft. That's what I loved about Hendon Hooker, right? And like C.J. Stroud, I think the movement is underrated when people talk about him. Man, does he have a lot of plays where people all around him, and then he escapes and makes a good run, or still makes a good throw where you go, damn, there's people at his feet, he can't really step into it, and he just muscles it in there. Now, hey, is it an ideal, like, oh, look at this play, and this will be exactly the way it is in the NFL? No, I mean, you guys are right. But from what he's taught and what he's asked to do, I see a lot of good decisions and the ball going in the right place a lot. And, that's where, again, meeting the guy, and if he's smart and works and whatever else, you're going to, okay, he can teach us. And I've got, just from watching film, I don't have any inclinations of thinking on film to go, oh, this guy's, an idiot, or he can't be taught, or he doesn't understand what he's looking at. So, again, you're gleaning that together a little bit, which I am, but as I went through his film, I just went, damn, it's game after game of good decisions, appropriate throws, and some of the questions we have are not his fault. It's the offense, and we got to just kind of overcome that, and we'll see where it goes from there.
So for a guy that sort of tends a little bit towards traits type of quarterbacks, why do you have Anthony Richardson so low? What is it that's turning you off about Richardson relative to guys like Hendon Hooker?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, you're right. Like, Richardson, though, has crossed the line to me of, like, so raw that I think there's a little more of a risk there, right? Like, I look at Richardson and go, that's raw. I looked at Josh Allen and went, it's raw, but it's a different kind of raw. It was raw in, wait, you can't fit that ball in there. Or, wait, you're not going to be able, it's the right decision, right? He's going through reads, but this guy's not open. Don't try to fit it in. With Richardson, and I didn't explain that the best there, there's more than that. It's not just like, an errant, I tried to fit a ball into the tight window every now and then, or I'm running around behind the line of scrimmage with my hair on fire and just trying to make something happen. There's too many plays of and too many throws of whoa, this guy's wide open. You can't miss that. Or, whoa, wait, I know this play here. He should be looking over here, and he's looking over here, right? So that's where there's a little more rawness that overcomes the great attributes that I'm just not sure about. That's kind of what I was saying with my rankings. I like Richardson. He was less raw than I expected,
right?
In a lot of ways. But yeah, there's still an element there that's a little bit unknown, at least in my opinion.
I mean, that's the funny part about all of this stuff, right? And it's great. I mean, rankings are just a list, right? And hearing the explanations are really the valuable part. There are people who would just throw out Richardson's best throws and look, he's accurate, right? But it's when you literally go through every single throw and you see them run the same pass concepts over and over at Florida.
Over and over.
Yes,
exactly right.
And sometimes he reads it out and it's great, and other times it's that's the same. Why didn't you make the same throw? Or why'd you overthrow this one, right?
That's what I'm saying. There's a little too much of that for me to go. And then some mechanical things with the throwing that I just can't go, oh, it's definitely going to work, and it's gonna work and be good, right? Yeah. Josh Allen, I felt comfortable with that. I felt like with the pieces I could say that. This, I'm just there's a little few things that I'm just not sure about. I know his running is special and his arm is special, like we all see. But you're explaining it right. There's some of those things there where I just go, oh, I don't know. There's some work to be done there in that department.
How do you weigh the running part of it, right? Because obviously we talk about passing is the most important thing. That's what we're discussing the most here. When I'm looking at these quarterbacks, part of my analysis is if the team embraces Anthony Richardson as a runner, if they build the offense around him as a runner, it's going to create these open throws. It'll mitigate some of those issues, and he'll probably run for 1,000 yards if they choose, right? How do you weigh that in your rankings, in your evaluation, knowing that some team could tap into this skill set far better than maybe a different team?
Right. That's where, it's a real part of this. And hey, you talk the questions earlier that Sam had and all that. That's where maybe I've evolved, right? Even with Justin Fields, he worried me about the throwing and some of the stuff like that. But what I think I didn't take into enough account was, wait, when they start to run him, it's going to make defenses very simple, and it's going to allow him to grow as a passer. Now, the first year, I was like, what the hell are they doing? They're trying to make him Peyton Manning. The guy's got, some of the greatest legs I've ever seen in my life. And then they started to run him this year, and you started to see, whoa, okay, he can do that. So I think, Steve, to your point, Richardson's running does make you feel a little bit better about some of the rawness stuff we're talking about, right? There's still issues there, and they still concern me, but the running is, like you're saying, if you do it the right way and have enough of that as a part of your offense, you guys know what's going to happen, right? Okay, wait, there's the ability to run the quarterback design runs and have the tailback and a pulling guard and be advantageous in the run game now leads to the most simple, bland coverages on the back end to where now you can develop as a passer a little bit, right? I get a lot of heat on this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Jalen Hurts has benefited from that. That's probably where I was wrong on that too. And now he's continuing to develop and go in the right direction, and we're seeing the passings getting better and better. So, there is true value to that running. And if you're going to draft that guy, you're crazy not to use that as a part of your offense. You don't need to run him 20 times a game. You run him 8 times a game, but the threat of the other 10, 12 times you might run him is going to benefit everybody else, and that's where the value of Anthony Richardson can come in.
Yeah, we've been saying it for a while on this show that level of rushing threat, it buys you time to figure out the passing stuff. It just props the offense up and then lets you learn on the job and get better. If Jalen Hurts wasn't able to do what he can do on the ground, he wouldn't have made it to the point where he could develop as a passer. He still wouldn't have been starting. When I asked on Twitter who everybody's favorite sleeper quarterback was, right? almost everybody replied with the same name. It was Dorian Thompson-Robinson, the UCLA quarterback, who's in your tier 4. He's up with these guys that everybody's talking about as the big 4 or the big 5 with Hendon Hooker in there. You have him in the same tier and joint, tied 5 with Will Levis. So sell me on DTR.
DTR was, to me, one of the most pleasant surprises. During the season, NFL season, I watch college football, but I'm not sitting there all day, every day, watching every game, right? I mean, I got kids. I got a 16-year-old, a 12-year-old. A lot of times, Saturday's my only day off the whole year. So, yeah, I see maybe the big game of the day or whatever. So I had a little feel for him. But, man, I mean, I just turned it on and I just went, wait, I don't understand it. He's 4 inches taller than Bryce Young. He's faster than Bryce Young. His arm is stronger than Bryce Young. He runs a pro-style offense, and you get to see him make decisions and plays that way. Not to the level Bryce Young does, but still. So I was just like, I don't get it. I'm looking at lists and going, damn, he's like down to the bottom of the quarterback rankings here in some people's. So I was shocked by that. One, he has all the physical skills to be a really good NFL starting quarterback. And then you get to see the quarterback stuff along with that. You know, like we talked about, he's got some different deliveries. He, to me, might have been arguably the slickest guy with the ball on screens and different arm angles compared to, other than Bryce Young, who was the best in that department. So that's where I really liked him. And I just, I didn't understand that. I didn't. And, I'm not a huge Will Levis fan. As you could tell, maybe as compared to the rest of the world. I thought DTR, his arm's not as strong and he's not as big, but he's a much better player at the position, I thought, than Will Levis. And I just thought he needed to be in the group of names there and the list there.
DTR took over for Cade McNown at UCLA. He's been there forever. Now he's been starting since 2018. I mean, I think that's why people sour on him a little bit, right? Because he was he was like a pretty good freshman who didn't really develop until maybe his final season, his 5th year starting at UCLA. And it's like a lot of times you're like, well, he's not that good. We saw him for 4 years. He's pretty good. We know what he is. But then he did improve a little bit last year, at least at UCLA. Will Levis, though. So why are you lower on Will Levis? What are your concerns, and how do you separate his 2021 being better than his last season at Kentucky?
Yeah, well, I mean, hey, Sam, maybe this is another. Look at me. I'm adjusting. I'm adjusting and getting away from big trait guys, right, a little bit, and just going like, I love his big arm. I love it. I do. I mean, damn, it's powerful. He's got a high ceiling. I understand that. He's a good athlete. He's big and tough as hell. He is. But whether I go back to last year or this year, there's still too many decisions and throws where I just go, wait, you're too good to miss that throw or make that decision or be all over the place with releases and footwork and everything, or floating in the pocket. And I'm going, the pocket's perfect. Or you're actually floating and going to get hit because you're doing that. It's just that. There was a natural feel for the game that I felt like he misses a little bit, let alone, a mechanical thing in the throwing that I'm not sure is going to be fixed. And I've watched, film, the combine, and the pro day, and I've still seen the issue there.
What is
There's a disconnect with how he hops under and gets his feet underneath him and hitch steps in certain throws. And then even like the combine or the pro day workout too, there's some throws where you go, whoa, and you look at it, and it flies off his hand, and it looks pretty, right? And you go, oh, my gosh. But then the receiver has to turn back or stop or slow down. You go, well, it wasn't really on rhythm and timing and quarterbacky there that way. And there's a lot of that, too. So, again, I recognize the ceiling's high, but I do think he's got a guy that's got maybe a low floor, too. And there's some issues there that I don't think are easily fixed. And, I guess I just couldn't buy into him like the rest of the crowd could.
Yeah, to me, the biggest question with him is almost like, where are the big plays? For a guy with that kind of cannon for an arm, he's not – when you go looking for his tape, you expect to see a ton of you expect to see Jameis Winston almost, right?
I hear you.
Ton of big plays, ton of bad mistakes, and, somewhere in there is the quarterback you're going to be dealing with. And certainly last year, you go through his tape, and you're like, where are – these big plays. Like with that arm, how can you not have more big plays in this in your tape?
Right. And then, too, to like Steve's point with Anthony Richardson, too, and I think you probably realize this, too, Sam, you start to go, wait, I know he's smart, but there's parts of me that go football smart, I'm not sure. There's a lot of the same concepts you see all the time, and I'm like, I wrote question marks. Like, is this the offense or is this him?
Right.
Because this is the second quarter, and it's the fifth time I've seen this play already, right?
Yeah.
And agreed with you. It's not as many big throws and big plays as you would expect with what you hear and the attributes and everything like that. I was underwhelmed in that department. There was even some of the big plays that happened. Here's a deep post. I want to go, well, it was kind of underthrown. The guy jumped up and caught it, right? It was, he threw the ball hard on a deep out, but the guy kind of turned around and then had to fall down as he was going out of bounds. There's that to where it's like, yeah, it looks pretty again, but the result should be better. And then I thought, too, sidearm doesn't work. It's a very floppy release with his arm. His feet are all over like I talked about. And then there's just those plays that you guys know as a quarterback where, hey, it's not perfect and you're moving in the pocket and, hey, there's somebody open and you got a little room and he's open and, just get it done. Your mechanics aren't going to be perfect, right? He never makes that throw. Never. Where the other guys, I go, damn, they got like 3 or 4 in every game where you go, ooh, look at that. He's in a weird position. The guy was open. He just got it done and got it to him. And so that bothered me as well.
Yeah, I sometimes I get too swayed by those plays. That's what I love about, I think, Bryce Young the most. I think Bryce Young just has that natural football feel the best. And I'm trying to balance in today's NFL where so many there's a lot of schemed open throws in today's NFL versus when you were playing and years ago.
Right.
But then you also have to have that natural playmaking ability. Sometimes personally I skew too much toward that. And of course Mahomes is the extreme example, but you have to have some of it, right? You at least have to have some of that element of to your game.
Yeah, no, that's where, hey, like let's just say Tanner McKee, right? From Stanford.
Our guy Mike Renner absolutely loves Tanner McKee. I love Mike Renner as well, but I can't figure out why he loves him so much. Sorry, carry on.
Well, yeah. And listen, there's things I like too. He's not my 6th or 7th or 8th best, somewhere, down the line there. But like 20 years ago, he'd probably been looked at as a higher prospect.
Yeah.
But now, no different arm releases, can't run, can't move. Like, that's just like a dying breed in the NFL.
Right.
Yeah, that'll work if you've got the best protection in football and you can do it that way, sure. But, there's only 2 or 3 teams that are going to be able to deliver that. So, yeah, the league is changing, and your point's real, and you just got to balance that out. That's my thing with Bryce Young, Steve, to your point is the playmaking's amazing. Some of the, wow releases and just the feel for the game is off the charts. But there are times where I go, wait, I don't know if this is actually, hey, he's back there in the pocket 7 yards behind the line of scrimmage. He's got nobody around him for like 5 or 6 seconds. Now somebody comes free and he makes the guy miss. And I'm going to go, I don't know if he's ever going to have that space or room on some of these NFL teams to make some of those plays. So that's where I'm a little not sure about him and some of that too. It's awesome, but there's some of it I go, I don't know if it's totally going to cross over to the NFL, and I'll be interested to see how it goes.
I want to wrap this up by talking about your wide receivers a little bit, and specifically the one guy that we found that actually is maybe the most polarizing receiver in this draft is Zay Flowers, who is your number 1 wide receiver. And when we just did our wide receiver rankings on yesterday's show, and he's the one guy that both of us were lower on than most people. So I've seen him kind of all over the map from a number 1 receiver, the top guy on the list, to we had him 7th, I think, each. So let me first say what we don't like or what I don't like necessarily about Flowers, and then I want you to make the counter argument to me. To me, I'm kind of worried that I don't know that he can be more than like a gimmick slot receiver at the next level, right? He feels like a guy that's super springy, bouncy, athletic, like a great athlete, but gets stuck on contact during routes, can't necessarily defeat physical coverage. I don't know that he has the greatest feel in the world for kind of zone coverage, for where to be at the right time. And he sort of reminded me a lot of, remember Dante Hall playing receiver, not the punt return version, but like when the Chiefs tried to make him into a slot receiver to get some use out of that guy in the offense. I know that the league has moved on since that point, and even Dante Hall now doing that job would be better than he was then.
Yeah,
but,
right.
if that's where you're starting from, I kind of wonder just how good that guy can be.
Well, I know. See, so I think those guys, and again, that offense up there, certainly not the specialist. Right. They're certainly not special. Some of the quarterback play, not special. I think he's gotten put in some positions in some of those plays, or some of the things you talk about where I go, it's going to be few and far between where he's going to be put in that spot in the NFL, right? They know how to use those type of guys. I just came away. Listen, I know he's smaller, but I came away going, I'm not as worried. I know he's not going to make a living jumping 50-50 balls and always winning that. And yeah, there's some bigger corners that can give him some problems every now and then. That happens. I saw Antonio Brown have issues with some bigger corners every now and then too. But all in all, I just thought, man, the route running, the explosiveness, the ability to come in and out of breaks, and the weapon thing, I'm a little more into that, the weapon thing. That to me is the way the NFL is right now. And I looked at him and went, I don't know, I felt like I was going, this is Jalen Waddle-ish in my opinion. I just don't know if the field was quite as open for him as it was for Waddle in Alabama when he had to worry about everybody else.
Right.
So, yeah, the slot receiver weapon thing, that's what I do think he is. But I think there's more of an element of route running and strength that I thought translated even better than Waddle in that department, to the NFL. Now, Waddle was pretty special in the open field. I think Zay Flowers is too. Maybe not to that degree. But, yeah, I kind of looked at him as a Waddle or a more polished Kadarius Toney type of guy, to your point. And I think there's, I'm in love with those kind of guys in the NFL right now.
Yeah, and that's what we always end up saying with receivers. It's what flavor do you like? What do you weigh?
Tough. I know.
We might all come to similar conclusions as far as what the player is, but how do you value those various things? So anyway, Chris, we're going to let you get out of here because you've been very generous with your time. We appreciate having you. And tell everybody where you're going through all these rankings on your podcast right now, yeah?
Yep. Yeah, it's Chris Sims Unbuttoned. That's the podcast. I'm like you guys. I'm in the weeds. It's football. It's all football, and that's all it is. And of course, I'm part Irish like Sam, so I'm a fucking crazy Irish guy too. I got it all going on. But yeah, Chris Sims Unbuttoned, my podcast. Every morning 7 to 9 a.m. Eastern time. Me and Mike Florio on Pro Football Talk. That's where you find me, and that's where you'll see me talking about some of this stuff.
Unbuttoned because you never unbutton your top button. There's no way that's
never unbutton my top button, but my mouth fucking unbuttons to a degree that you've never seen before unbuttoned. So it's a little bit of a play on words.
I'm bringing the full counterweight, though, to Chris today. He's full buttoned up. I've got to unbutton this even further just to make sure we're in the balance.
I like it. You got the butterfly collar working, and you got a thicker neck than me, too, so you look better like that than I do.
I love a good double entendre, too, Chris. So Chris Sims Unbuttoned. Go check out the podcast and listen to him and Florio and everything. So thanks, Chris. Appreciate it. We'll have to do it again sometime.
Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. Be good. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks. Take it easy.
See ya.